Good morning. Welcome in all. As you're joining us, as folks are trickling in, please share with us a little bit in the chat so we know who all is with us today. We'd love to know what role you are representing today, the grade levels that you're working with, and what district you're coming from in our great state this morning, just so we can focus in on making our time the most useful to everyone, knowing who all is with us in our webinar this morning. We'd love to know a little bit more about who you all are. So please drop in just a couple notes about who you are, where you're coming from, and we'll get started in just a couple minutes. We'll give a minute or so for everybody to join in. Great. All right. Seeing some superintendents from all over. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Some principal, school admin. Wonderful. Great. If you're just joining us, please tell us a little bit about your role, grade level, district in the chat so we know who all is going to be in our session today. We can make the most of our time together. Great. Some CTE departments represented here. We're definitely going to touch on the CTE STEM relationship. Great, MTS coordinators. We love to see all roles represented, from classroom teachers, school admin, district admin. We will definitely have something for everyone today. Depending on what exactly your purview is, there will be something here for you to walk away with. Curriculum director, great to see you. All right. Thank you all for joining us this morning, for telling us a little bit more about who you are. As for our side of things, my name is Hope Thompson. I'm a senior manager of curriculum and instruction at NextWaveSTEM. I'm a former science teacher myself in Baltimore and Chicago public schools. I've also held roles in instruction and curriculum design. For robotics for students pre-K all the way up through 12, which I'd love to mention because we really want to include pre-K students in these conversations. We want to just have that reminder that there's a place for all students in STEM and there's a place for STEM in the school life of all students. So just like to highlight that whatever your perspective is, whatever lens you're looking through today and every day when working with your students, we want to be bringing STEM opportunities to you and to your students that are immediately useful and understanding of all the different needs of our students from pre-K through 12. And I'm also joined by Micah Miner.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I see even one of my members of my team who's doing the after school program that we'll talk about later. So welcome, everyone. Looking forward to the conversation.
And also Jay Ramakrishnan is with us as well.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm in conversations with a number of you, and I've reached out to a number of you with my outreach. So once again, I look forward to working with all of you at some point. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, as we're getting started, I'd love to know a little bit about how the schools and districts that are represented here in our chat today are currently approaching STEM. So on this spectrum from 1 to 4, think about where your current approach may be and drop a number in the chat. One being, we're interested in integrating STEM. Maybe we have just initiated a priority for our district, a new campaign to bring in a little bit more STEM, but we don't yet have a program. We're in the early stages of figuring out what that's going to look like. Maybe number 2, having implemented some STEM initiatives, we have standalone projects that our students have engaged in. Maybe we've done a STEM night once a semester or introduced an after-school club. 3, we've got a STEM curriculum or a resource. Maybe it's in the school day, but we're still building some buy-in, some fidelity across the school or district. Some of that expertise or interest is still siloed in an individual teacher or school, and we're looking to build a little bit more buy-in unilaterally across the school or district. Or 4, we've got an in-school year-round STEM curriculum. We're just looking for a little bit of a broader picture on what STEM opportunities can look like, what other curricula are out there, or one that's more attuned to our school needs. So drop a number in the chat just where you think you may be at this present moment as a bit of a snapshot. All right, seeing some 2s and 3s, maybe a little bit further in your middle school than your elementary school, sure. Great. So we have the whole spectrum from 1 through 4, which is great. There's going to be something for everybody today, whether you are just thinking about what STEM can look like, or you're happy with your program, or you're looking for other options, but you want to get a bigger picture. We actually surveyed schools and found that 70% of the schools that we spoke to had no set STEM curriculum. So if you're at 1, you're not alone. If you're at 2, 3, or 4, you're ahead of the curve. But we want to give you the resources that make you feel comfortable moving up that scale a little bit today. Hopefully by the end of our time, you'll feel ready to move up to 2, 3, or 4, or have a better picture of what the STEM landscape looks like. NextWaveSTEM exists in part because we spoke to those schools that had no STEM plan or curriculum. We believe that the world needs young innovators, so we offer these courses in emerging technologies specifically designed to give students opportunities to practice some of those 21st century skills, confidence in critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, and opening up pathways to careers in these technologies, what we may have used to call the careers of tomorrow, but are increasingly the careers of today, as our students are living with these technologies and existing in a world where they encounter them every day. So how can we equip them to be successful, not only in their careers in the future, but in the world that they live in today? When we talk about STEM, I want to be really particular about what we mean specifically. Of course, science, technology, engineering, and math can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, and a lot of things fall under the STEM umbrella. But we're going to focus in on 3 pillars of STEM instruction and STEM implementation. The first being the engineering and science design process. So our students engaging in a process of asking questions, defining problems, imagining and planning solutions, and then engaging in an iterative process of improving those solutions and constantly evaluating their success against those early questions and problems that they identified. This is a process and a skill that extends far beyond STEM. We hear from ELA teachers. This reminds me a lot of our students engaging in a drafting and writing process too. We know that this is a process that is essential to STEM development, but it's also one that will provide students with skills that go far beyond the science classroom, the math classroom. The second pillar would be the technology that is the result of this process. What sort of innovations and emerging technologies do we see showing up as a result of experts engaging in that process? That holds its own value in building engagement with students. They want to fly drones. They want to design and play a video game. They want to control a robot to navigate a maze. These are all high impact, high engagement, hands-on technologies, but they also provide students with an example of what can be developed when you pair skills and content knowledge with that design process. And then finally, that third pillar being those measurable skills in computer science, coding, and the use of technology with fluency that students need to put those 2 pieces together, the process and the product. How can we build those kinds of skills with building algorithms, decomposing problems, using increasingly complex coding skills alongside the technology and the 21st century skills of working together and engaging in that design process? So when we see schools and districts design STEM programs that meet those goals of all three of those pillars, we see two major pathways to making that happen. On one side, we have standalone STEM instruction. Now, this is often at the very early stages an after school program, a robotics club, a computer science club, a STEM night, maybe with some family engagement. Or eventually, schools are able to bring it into the school day to protect time that is dedicated to STEM, not just as part of science or part of math, but protecting STEM time maybe as a special alongside art and music, an elective for our middle and high schoolers. Maybe we are able to find 25 minutes twice a week for even our busy elementary school teachers. We know all that time is really particular that they are dedicated to core subjects. Or the library and media specialist takes on some STEM alongside some of their other curricula. That's one option for reaching STEM goals, but we also see a lot of schools and districts who instead choose to integrate STEM into core subjects. Can we bring in the engineering design process to another subject, to ELA? Can we bring in a technology to our math classes? Can we find ways to build computer science coding skills alongside some of those core standards that we know we need to hit with our students? So both of these are great approaches to making sure that STEM is brought to students and students are brought to STEM. And we're going to focus on each of these in turn today and talk about a few examples for what those can look like. If you're at sort of number one on that scale, this can be a great way to see just what STEM can look like and not be something that's a little bit nebulous and hopeful to get to, and we want to bring STEM in, but we're not sure how. If you're already at four, maybe you can evaluate where your school falls on either side of these options and whether that if there's a better, more targeted fit for the goals that you're ready to step into as you continue to evolve your school or district STEM program. So we'll start with what STEM standalone instruction can look like. And when we have that protected time, if you're fortunate enough to have it in the school day or you're starting to carve it out of the after school space as well, we can dedicate that time to our computer science and digital fluency standards in Illinois. We want to make sure that no matter what we do, it is underscored by that standards alignment, that we're building the skills students are going to need across more than just building coding skills, but using all sorts of digital tools with fluency, accurately, comfortably, and safely. So in Illinois, that's like many other states, based off of the Computer Science Teachers Association standards and set across 5 different categories. Computing systems, understanding hardware and software, input and output, and being able to troubleshoot with fluency. Networks and the internet, understanding the transmission of electronic data, foundational cybersecurity ideas. Data and analysis, so that can vary from organizing, presenting, interpreting, analyzing data, using all of this data to predict trends or to evaluate the success of different technologies. Using algorithms and programming, so this is where we get into those core computer science skills, decomposing a problem, building a sequence or an algorithm, testing and debugging programs that students have designed with coding software, and bringing it all back to the use of programming to solve real problems. And then impacts of computing, thinking a little bit more broadly about where these technologies fit into our society and culture, understanding the ethics of their use, relevant issues within programming like bias and accessibility, and exploring different career paths that engage each of these categories and these skill sets. Just to give an idea of what that progression can look like across K through 12, we can see how some of these same skills come up again and again, but deepen in their complexity, move up Bloom's taxonomy in terms of higher order thinking, and provide a little bit of a broader scope of impact across society and culture. So our K through 2 students or just learning about the process of debugging errors in an algorithm that includes sequence or simple loops. This may even be sort of offline without technology for our youngest students, breaking up something like brushing your teeth, making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich into those steps and understanding when they have been given incorrectly where that bug is. Our third through fifth graders start to test a little bit more, and they're going to rely on the technology to run these programs and making sure that it comes back to intended goals. Middle school students are, again, broadening that scope, thinking more systematically, thinking through a range of test cases to get ready for our high school students who are thinking more in an evaluative sense. They're refining these programs to make them more usable, more accessible, thinking a little bit about the connections between impacts of computing with these algorithmic skills. And then our 11th and 12th graders thinking again more deeply about a series of test cases, thinking about how these relate to careers, to user experience, broadening that scope and deepening the thinking a little bit more. For something like impacts of computing, more conceptual, our youngest students are thinking about how students live and how people live and work with and without technologies. Our third through fifth graders are discussing these technologies, how they're influenced by and influence cultural practices, setting these within a context of our society and culture. Our sixth through eighth graders, again, thinking more in evaluation and justification, comparing the trade-offs between using technologies, the costs of using those technologies. Again, our high schoolers, evaluating different cultural, economic, social, personal impacts of technologies, predicting trends around the use of those technologies and future development.
There are some
So
actions.
just as an example for how these different technologies or different standards can change from K through 12. Now, depending on which of those standards you may be looking to hit, you may put together a menu of different coursework that is going to touch on the impacts of computing, the algorithmic and programming skills. Maybe you want to focus in on some of those cybersecurity ideas. With this example of NextWaveSTEM curriculum, you can see across the very top are 7 pathways. Each of those are going to have different focuses: robotics, drones, game design, AI literacy. Those are going to be a lot about the computer science skills, the programming skills, and the impacts, especially in that AI literacy, the impacts of technologies on the way people live and work. You may see in innovation and entrepreneurship more of a focus on the engineering design process, working collaboratively. Sustainability is going to show a lot of the impacts of technology across different industries. We're looking at agriculture. We're looking at smart energy. So putting together a different menu of options and courses that are going to allow a comprehensive coverage of all of those standards is going to help make the most of a standalone STEM time instruction. We're going to focus in on just one of these pathways as an example. We're going to look at robotics. This is where a lot of schools and districts start when looking at introducing STEM. And so when we're looking at designing a STEM program that meets the needs of your school and district, you may be coming in with a different approach, a different category in mind, whether you really have an importance placed on an arts connection, whether you're looking from a career and technical perspective and you want to zoom in on the courses and the standards that are going to prepare your students for careers after graduation. Maybe you are dedicated to computer science. Your library and media specialist is going to introduce those standards specifically to help support some of the other media studies that they'll be doing with their students. Or you've launched a makerspace in your school. You're not sure where to start. You have the materials, but no curriculum. You have teachers who want to make the most of the space, but aren't sure where to begin. Depending on which of those buckets you are looking to fill at your school or district, a different combination of those emerging technology courses may be most appropriate. We're going to look at a computer science example through robotics. So looking at maybe a small district that has introduced robotics as a first step across K through 12. What can that look like? For our youngest students, we're really able to practice some of those foundational algorithmic skills, both with and without the use of technology. Like that example I gave before, how do you brush your teeth and put it into steps? Making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich often is a really common demonstration to show students just how precise we need to be when we are writing programs. And we can use a simple robot like the Colby mouse, which houses input buttons right on the robot. So students are not using a second software and uploading, but they're building up the skills of writing a program, running it, testing it out, and debugging. They're also getting some connections to telling stories. They're using Colby to draw numbers on a grid. They're hunting for treasure. They're getting all of these experiences that also underscore their basic coding skills. And I've pulled a few of those computer science and digital fluency standards in as well to show a little bit more of the specifics that we see. Our third through fifth graders are ready to make that connection between software and hardware. Understanding the transmission of data is going to come up in those upper elementary grades as well. They're using a more complex robot, something that is coded through block programming. Students are just fitting together some of those puzzle pieces that have block code to understand the steps of building a program, to do things like track and follow a line, respond to sound with sound, use flashing lights. They're competing in tasks. They're using some conditional thinking. If my robot comes to an obstacle, then what is the response? Does it turn? Does it flash a light to signal it needs help? What sort of conditional thinking are we building in? They're using loops to make their code more effective, more efficient. They're understanding how that block programming builds out a program that solves a particular problem. Our middle schoolers can use that same technology. So especially if they're within the same building and students are working with the same robot, on a deeper level. They can use it to do more responding and avoiding of objects. They can think a little bit more critically about what problems in the real world robotics are solving. They can really ground their activities in specific problem solving scenarios and also think more creatively about what kind of applications they have in the classroom. Students at this level are not just participating in competitions, they're designing different challenges for their classmates to engage in. They're evaluating their classmates' programs on the success of the problem that they're trying to solve. So we see a little bit more of deeper thinking, again, rooting everything in that problem solving career aspect where we're thinking a little bit about how these show up in the real world while building those skills, building that design process, and getting exposure to these technologies. And then for our high school students, especially those who are thinking more on a CTE basis, we really want to bring these skills back to the kinds of situations and skill building that we see in the manufacturing industry. So our 9 through 12 students are using a simple single board computer like a microbit and a variety of attachments to simulate the kind of processes that we see in manufacturing. So for example, these students may be using a microbit, a conveyor belt, a sorting wand, and a color sensor to sort M&Ms as they come down the track into two separate red and green. Just as an example, they're also working with more specific coding languages. So they've graduated from block coding, fitting those puzzle pieces together to something that's more of an industry standard like Python, a text-based coding language that we see show up in professional contexts. So this is just sort of one way that focusing on a single technology, a single pathway can cover some of those algorithmic and programming skills. And paired with another course in maybe innovation, where you get a little bit more of the impacts of technologies, engineering and design process, you can cover all those computer science and digital fluency standards across this protected standalone STEM time, whether that's in school, after school, part of an elective, part of a special. Maybe it's been carved out of a science or math block. Whatever that implementation, however it shows up in the school day, we can make sure that it's covered by the standards and the high quality curriculum that makes sure it's the most useful and impactful for our students. So to give a little bit of perspective on what one version of a standalone STEM can look like at Beach Park, I'm going to hand it over to Micah to tell us a little bit about his district's experience.
So thank you everyone for your time. I'm just going to briefly kind of highlight. I'm in year 2 of a new role in this district, and I came from another district. So I wanted to make sure that I took a lot of the lessons learned from my other district on things that worked and brought it to this district up here in Beach Park. And I have worked with NextWaveSTEM in the past before in a couple of different roles, and I find their curriculum to be very comprehensive. It also gives really good access for teacher level training that sometimes districts, especially smaller districts like mine, may not have the time to afford. And so I was trying to create with my director of teaching and learning an opportunity for us to combine our efforts into making sure that our STEM goals are met in K-5, because we are a K-8 district like many in the state of Illinois, and we want to make sure that we're addressing those things. But in our middle schools, they already have Project Lead the Way, they have a STEM class, and they have a few other things, media labs and things like that, that kind of address those things. So the way I decided to build, along with collaborating with some of the leadership, is to build like an after-school program first. Our science curriculum is a little bit more flexible in its play, but it also takes some time for changing and adoption. So we decided to do an after-school club this year in all of my elementary school sites, targeting 4th and 5th grade students, in order to introduce our STEM opportunities for our kids to go and learn in those data sets. And then I bought a few of the modules, and then we are rotating between buildings the different topics. So we were able to incorporate about 2 teachers or staff members per building to run an after-school program. And we were able to give them some time and some stipends to be able to focus on a bit of a training. And then what I liked about it is the team members that were stepping up to the plate, like Julio, who is actually on this call today, they were able to work together with their teacher partners for that after-school program and find some time to like balance in their own time during that school, during their school week, the opportunity to train themselves and do some collaboration in order for them to get it off the ground. So we are working on getting through our first round, which ended this week actually, and really excited for the opportunity. And we're expecting to build on this next year as the schools get more comfortable with it, to start embedding it in units within a science curriculum, and starting with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, or maybe just 4th and 5th grade next year, and then slowly build into having the NextWaveSTEM curriculum aspects be incorporated more fully into our science curriculum for many different reasons. So it took a little bit of planning and some collaboration on how we funded it, with some collaboration between the director of teaching and learning and some of the title grants that they're working with, along with some of my budget, and the CSBO signing off on it, which was really, really exciting. And for the first time, our kids are getting that after school programming example we're using the drone simulations as round 1. We have the M robots, we have 3D printing. We are working on the hydroponics for later on in the year for some, and then we're also doing an introduction to AI coming up with Access very, very soon. So we're really excited about building that computer science set of thinking skills. And as somebody who's done a lot of research in this area, it's really important that kids very, very young start getting exposed. And we used robotics as a unit that Hope was introducing. It's really important that they start beginning and understanding very young that how robotics and how artificial intelligence is being used, so that they learn that they are not necessarily, that just because it comes from a computer, that it doesn't mean it's always right? Being able to understand that computers are just functioning in a way where there are programming skills, finding ways to realize that these things are designed in a certain way so that students have some sort of agency over understanding that they can run commands and actually have a robot do something. All those things build confidence in a world where we have a future of a very strong artificial intelligence push, and our students are growing up in an environment where most answers are just a click away. So it's really important at a very young age to expose them to those realities. And I find that the NextWaveSTEM curriculum, as you incorporate it with whatever levels that you can do in your different locations and spaces, that it helps build that competency in the younger grades, particularly so that as they get older, they're able to do the more advanced understandings of how to actually command using Python or whatever HTML, whatever coding programming language is there present, and finding ways to have agency over their learning, and understand that just because it's from a screen and it gives you prompts that you're able to actually navigate and maintain it and give it directions is a super empowering concept. So that's what we're excited when, like I said, we just started this. This is year one of this adoption. We're going to continue with our after school programming for the 4th and 5th grades for our sites that are elementary, and then we're going to continue to build it and start embedding it into the curriculum over the next 2 years. So that's how we decided to do it. Each location and each space has their own abilities and their own access to figure out the best momentum that you can build. But we do know that the Illinois requirements expect a K-12 computer science curriculum. There's a lot of connections in the 4th and 5th grade science curriculum. And then I also use the ISI standards as well. So very excited about it. And like I said, one of my team members is here actually who runs one of the after school programs, who collaborates with it. So it's been a great opportunity for them to expand their skill set as teachers, and students have that experience for that program.
Thank you so much, Micah. So if you are a school or district who is currently thinking that all sounds great, we would love to do STEM instruction, we just don't have the time right now, or I want to start integrating this right away, and maybe we'll start working on the initiative to protect that time, or introduce an after school club later on. Then you may be more thinking through how we can bring STEM into core subjects, into time we already have with students where we know we're going to find opportunities to bring in the engineering design process, the different technologies, or the different computer science skills. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can make this happen, and at NextWave, we're more than happy to help work with you to find creative ways to bring them in. We see schools who are using drones to practice understanding points on the coordinate plane. And for our 4th and 5th grade students in math, we see ELA students who are building chatbots. They're designing with their computer science skills and a block programming a chatbot to tell a story, to interact and practice with tone and writing, maybe to serve as a cumulative project for social studies. This is a chatbot who is going to share information and behave as if they are George Washington, or something along those lines. So there's a lot of different ways that you can bring the technology, the skills, the process into different core subjects. We're going to look at one in particular today, by focusing in on a science unit and a variety of science standards. So from K through 12, we've pulled out some plant life science standards. Our kindergartners using observations to describe what plants and animals need to survive. 2nd grade, planning and conducting investigations to determine if plants need sunlight and water. 5th grade, supporting an argument that plants get the materials they need for growth chiefly from air and water. Middle schoolers are constructing scientific explanations for how environmental factors influence the growth of organisms, and our high schoolers are doing some designing, evaluating, refining of solutions, which that sounds like the engineering design process, it should, for reducing the impact of human activities on the environment. So all these different standards can all benefit from the introduction of a single technology across a building, across a district, and that is hydroponics. So we're going to look at what would happen for all of these different
Hope we're losing you a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry
Hope.
if you
Okay.
lost me.
Yeah, we're losing you a little bit, Hope.
All right, am I back? Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're back right now.
Okay. So hydroponic technology is one that can improve a life science unit across K through 12 by growing plants without soil using nutrients in a water basin and grow lights. We see how plants get what they need chiefly from sun and nutrients that we can add in sort of artificially, having students play a little bit larger of a role than they might in the traditional growing in an empty egg carton or a seed on a wet paper towel in a bag on the windowsill. I'm a former second grade teacher, so I know these units well. This is a little bit more of a controlled environment. You can see from this picture here the success that students have in growing with hydroponics. The shelving unit that is about 1 foot wide, 2 feet long, 2 feet tall. It's a relatively small impact within a classroom if you're looking for a small scale, but it is easily scaled up if you're looking at a school, a district implementation. So in terms of taking this from K all the way through 12, we can see how this technology can be brought in during core subjects, during science instruction that is happening anyway. Our K through 2 students are getting those parts of a plant, what plants need. They're getting supportive texts in what plants we eat, parts of plants, the use of roots, the importance of roots, seed dispersal, all of these core science standards that we are normally hitting through and GSS through our science time are improved by having a little bit more of a controlled environment to grow in, but having also the opportunity to compare that growth to the growing in the empty egg carton, to the seed in a bag on the windowsill. What differences do we see? How can we start to introduce some of that variability with growth and with science as a practice with our students early on? They're also getting to see a variety of different plants grow. They can even, we have schools who make a salad on the last day of their unit with the leafy greens that they've been growing in their hydroponics. For our older elementary students, that same hydroponic system provides an opportunity for the development of a lot of scientific practices. This is an arena for students to get lots of time with scientific observation, data collection, comparing data, communicating and showing that data, as well as designing experiments. How do these plants grow differently in different environments? Alongside this hydroponic system, we're also growing plants in lemon juice and vinegar and rubbing alcohol and seeing how they do. We're understanding more about the structures of plants that we see. We can even, for our upper elementary, our middle school students, we can start to pull those leafy greens and put them under a slide to look at chlorophyll. So we're relying on this technology for the same science skills that we would be trying to achieve without it, but we're bringing in more of that emerging technology, the excitement of understanding where innovation can bring us, so that our middle schoolers can see what that innovation can be used for to help within the larger scope of our culture and society. How do hydroponic systems help respond to issues like food deserts, produce scarcity, the problem solving that we want our middle school and high school students to really make that connection to real world skills, to think towards CTE and where they're headed. We see that come up in middle school. A cumulative project for this unit can be designing a hydroponic system that can sustain life for a 6-person space exploration of 8 months. We can have students thinking a little bit more about how we could see these innovations help solve problems and help us continue to innovate as a society and culture. And then our high school students, we're broadening that lens again to the industries that we see these innovations play into. So how do hydroponics show up in the larger agricultural sciences? They can focus in on hydroponic growth, but also see how it is scaled to a much larger enterprise and how it fits into other issues around agribusiness, land and animal management, irrigation, all sorts of different ideas within this larger scope of agriculture, while also getting more cross-curricular connections. They can grow wheatgrass in the hydroponic shelving unit, They can then juice that wheatgrass into a health drink and then design a business plan to take that health drink to market. So they're getting that connection across entrepreneurship and agriculture with just the introduction of this one technology that's giving them more of those interdisciplinary skills and exposures that also have that connection to real world careers that they may be interested in or ready for upon graduation. Now, that's just one example of how a single technology can be used across K through 12. So for one district, one school, one building, you see that one technology making a big impact across all those different classrooms, all those different standards. As a former educator myself, I understand it all comes down to those standards and the quality of instruction that we are providing for our students. All of NextWave materials are aligned to standards. Illinois science and tech standards, ELA and math standards are also supported because we also know not everybody has that dedicated STEM time. You need to know what other skills you're supporting. ISTE and CSTA standards, which are the gold standard, and oftentimes, especially in Illinois, certainly do align with our own computer science standards, but are useful national standards to use when state standards are not as specific as we like to be, as well as those 21st century skills. Students are collaborating, they're practicing creativity and communication and critical thinking all throughout every single one of these courses, regardless of the topic. I know this is the bottom line for educators, whether you are in the administrative, you're thinking more for the district, or you are a classroom teacher. These are equally important to you. We are already active in Peoria, Chicago, Beach Park, Forest Park. There may be conversations already happening at your district. So if you are interested in NextWaveSTEM materials, definitely inquire because oftentimes we are already an approved curriculum provider for your district, and we can quickly get these high quality instructional activities to your students. We also know a major barrier to STEM often is that content knowledge, the availability of staff, and staying up to date on these emerging technologies. At NextWave, we understand that that's our job to stay on top of emerging tech and bring you cutting edge technologies and high quality materials. So we do not write our lesson plans with an expert teacher in mind every single time. All of our content is designed for all educators to implement. Our lesson plans are highly supportive. I call them just short of scripted. If your STEM teacher, your coordinator, your library media specialists, your classroom teachers who will be implementing are experts in these topics, whether it's coding or hydroponics, AI, fantastic. They will appreciate how specific our lesson plans are and how supportive our materials are. If they're not, they can follow them to the letter and still have the content background and the instructional ability to lead students and to be a resource. All of our lesson plans also are accompanied by student-facing presentations, student worksheets, formative and summative assessments, scope and sequence documents so that you can see that standards connection to every objective from every lesson, and professional development resources, videos, supportive documents, and presentations to help understand not only the instructional activities of the course, breaking it down lesson by lesson, but also the background knowledge. If it's your first time coding, whether it's block programming or if it's a high school level, we're doing some Python coding. We're going to have those materials prepared so that teachers can dedicate a little bit of time to getting up to speed on the content, but relying primarily on the things that only they can do, which is provide that high quality instruction that is based in the relationships they have built with their students. All of this hosted on our teaching portal for teachers to access self-paced. So they can return to that content after winter break when we're getting back into it and we need to brush up on some of the skills that are going to come up in the second half of the course. We still have that ability to access those resources for the entire length of their curriculum licensure. And I do want to provide one more look at our offerings at NextWave. So you can see again across that top row are 7 categories, what we call our pathways: robotics, drones, AI literacy, 3D technology, digital fabrication, innovation and entrepreneurship, sustainability, and game design. And then along that left column are different grade level grade bands, K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Every one of these boxes, these titles that you see here, is a core 15 lesson course that may also have supplementary lessons, bringing some of them up to about 20 lessons. All of those presentations, assessments, and supportive resources are found in every one of these individual topics. So hopefully at the end of our time here today, you're feeling a little bit more ready to move up that scale, whether it was from a 1 to 2 or a 3 to a 4, or even a better picture of what high quality STEM instruction can look like. We are more than happy to help partner with you to find a combination of courses that fit the needs of your school or district. Nothing makes me happier than really getting in the weeds with other teachers and talking about what your students need and how we can design a program that best fits them. Because I know it all comes down to that quality of instructional materials. I highly, highly encourage you to check out our curriculum samples by following this QR link or checking out our website, NextWaveSTEM. We really stand behind the high quality of those materials, and they're a great starting point for if you're not exactly sure what technology you want to bring in, what pathway you'd like to start with. I want to thank you all very much for joining us at what I know is about the busiest time of year for educators. So thank you so much for dedicating your time today, participating with us here in the chat. If you have any more questions, our team will stick around for a couple more minutes. If you want to drop a question in the chat, or even come off of mute and chat through any of the particulars that you may have walking away today, we'd be more than happy to help answer any outstanding questions. So we'll stick around for a couple more minutes, but please check out our samples, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. My information is there in the chat. I would love to talk to you and set up a time. So thank you once again. Thank you, Hope, and thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you all so much. If you do have any questions that emerge in the next couple of days, please do reach out to us. You can find Jay's link here in the chat, or you can take a look through our website and get a little bit of a better idea of what our offerings are. Oh, I see we do have a question. Go ahead, Yolanda.
Yes, hi. So I'm curious about a couple things, and I'm sorry I came in about 10 minutes late, so you may have covered this. Um, for after school programs, and your training, it sounds like this is all teacher led, right? So you don't hire and provide staff to deliver programs. Is that right?
We
The,
do both. So we do have
okay,
programs where our educators provide the instruction, and we have programs where in school, in building, teachers will license the curriculum.
great. And in ter- so what would be your capacity to expand into if the expansion required hiring your own staff? Like, would you need funding to hire all new staff at this point? Do you have the capacity to take on one or two additional schools? How do you think about um, capacity when you are deploying your own staff?
Sure. It depends on the region. We have teams that are established in Illinois. We have a team in Chicago. Depending on the need of the schools and the districts that we're working with, we do have capacity to expand from there. If it just depends on what the program is looking for. Many of our programs start with our educators providing after school and maybe transition to an in-school curriculum later on. That's one pathway. But we do have a team, especially here in Chicago, where we have multiple educators providing programming at multiple schools. But we do have a large capacity to expand either as the team needs here in Chicago or in particular areas, if there is a need and the program at the school is robust enough to support it, we can expand to larger teams elsewhere. We currently have teams in Maryland, in New York, in Texas, We have a variety of areas that just depend on the school or district program.
Great. And if I don't want to monopolize the time, but I do have one other question. Um, if no one else has a question. Okay. Um,
Right.
yeah. And so we know that CPS has its Skyline curriculum, and many schools are using that for STEAM instruction. How does your curriculum complement, intersect with that?
Well, I think the major feature of one of the major features of our content is that it is developed with this emerging technology in mind. So we tend to be on the cutting edge of a lot of these technologies. We have had, for example, an AI program since 2021, 2022, and have developed it throughout to make sure it's up to date. But we tend to be ahead of the curve on a lot of those technologies. So it does provide, because we are dedicated specifically to STEM as opposed to pairing it with science or having other topics, on our plate, we are able to dedicate a level of specificity, really diving in. All of our courses being 15 lessons on each of these topics, no matter how specific the topic is, whether it's game design or AI, you can see it in a variety of ways. And it's not just one size fits all. If you want to practice those computer science skills, you can do so at the third through fifth grade level, for example, with drones, with AI, with game design, with robotics. So you have a little bit more variability to meet both student interests and needs and those career connections. Robotics is not the only way to demonstrate or to build skills with students when it comes to programming. We know that there's a lot of different applications. So you can follow both student interests a little bit more closely. I know I would have loved to design a video game when I was in the fourth grade.
Mhm.
And also, you can give a little bit of a better picture of what kinds of careers are available in these arenas without saying there's only one way to be, a robotics programmer.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
and also, can I just jump in, Miss Knight? So we do work with schools, CPS schools, and in addition to using that Skyline curriculum, a lot of them layer our programs as a supplement to what is in place. Okay, so they feel that some of those things have some deficits, and that's where we jump in and we provide what they cannot get from Skyline.
great. And then lastly, and I truly lastly, do you have corporate partnerships at all? You mentioned career connections. Do you have corporate partners that push in at all to help explain careers or to support curriculum development or help students see how this is applied in the world of work?
We do have a program at our ninth grade level, which is an FAA drone prep course. So it's sort of like the written part of the driver's ed test. It's a prep course for sitting for that particular exam. So that's one that immediately students can exit and sit for that exam and have a license as long as they're over the age of 16 in drone flight. And so that's our strongest connection, particularly to an industry and the set of skills. For other 9 through 12 courses, it is more about building the industry level skills. So, for example, our 9 through 12 3D printing course graduates from Tinkercad, which is what our elementary students have been using to design, to Fusion 360. And that is an industry standard technology that in manufacturing, students would be using that particular software. So we want to build up those skills. So that sort of is the same theme that we see throughout. We take our skills that we practice in more of a classroom educational space, and in the 9 through 12, we push towards something that's more industry level, and has a little bit more of the root in that particular industry. But for all of our 9 through 12 courses, they're a great way to serve as sort of an elective exploration, a survey of these CTE categories.
Mhm.
So we see a little bit more of that varied exposure and engagement kind of style of CTE.
Wonderful. And as you guys talk, I come up with more questions, but Oh, I know. I want to respect your time, and can certainly follow up online regarding the materials question.
Sure,
And
sure.
yeah,
Ms. Knight, I can reach out to you. I can send you my meeting link to book a time with you. Not a
that
problem at
sounds
all.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining. We wish you a very happy, busy holiday season. And we will be sending out this recording to you by Monday. You'll receive this in your inbox. Thank you all so much.
Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Hope.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye, you too.